A pizzeria is accessible to everybody. You know, you could be 8 years old or 80 years old. You know, you could have $5 in your pocket or $5 million in your pocket. It's a place that everybody likes to go, you know, and it's pizza. Fucking everybody loves it, you know?
So this is Frank Pinella. You might recognize him from Gosney videos, First We Feast, or most notably as the host of the Pizza Show on Vice. He honestly changed the world of pizza forever with that show by highlighting some of the most passionate pizza makers from all over the world and just helping to spread the knowledge and love for pizza. And he also happens to own his own incredible pizzeria in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, here in New York City. And today I have an amazing opportunity to sit down with him, talk about how they make their pizza here at Best Pizza, and even see a bit of the process for myself.
Yeah, so I got started in pizza when I was 13 years old. You know, my very first job was at a pizzeria. You know, I was kind of like a busboy, but I was always super jealous of the cooks. And like even before that, so Da Vinci's and J&V were like our neighborhood pizzerias. I think that was like the first time I spent money, my own money on something, and it was like almost like freedom, you know, going to the pizzeria. As I got older, pizza was never like something that I really wanted to do, especially when I started getting more serious about food. I wanted nothing to do with pizza, actually. I wanted to work in fine dining. You know, when I was in culinary school, I was working for this guy named Giacomo, who was a mentor of mine. So like I said, I worked in a pizzeria as a kid, but working with Giacomo really kind of opened my eyes to, you know, what if I took some of the stuff that I was learning at school and we applied it to like the slice game. A grandma pizza to me is a pizza that cooked in a pan, you know, usually a square pan, not as thick as a Sicilian pie. Usually the cheese goes on first and then the sauce, and that's my definition of a grandma. I'm sure other people do it a little bit differently, but the grandmas I grew up eating, those are the characteristics. As you can see, we got a lot of nice air on this pie. One of the important things when you make it is not to be too heavy-handed. Just squash that hard work that you just worked on letting the dough proof. So we have these beautiful bubbles on it. I have my grandma sauce, and then we have our mozzarella cheese. For the cook at home, I think one thing that's important is you may want to leave this stuff out, take it out of the fridge and let it sit, because your home oven then has to really fight against, you know, really cold cheese and a really cold sauce. So you want to get as closest to room temperature with these ingredients as you can. You end up having a really nice result. Aside from the gluten-free, and if we're doing something special, I don't like to do too many doughs at the pizzeria. It's like, yeah, we use the same exact dough. We weigh it out to the same amount of grams. We use these really nice pans. They're from a company called Lloyd. They're expensive, but they're nice. So from there, we take our dough ball, you know, with our fingers, kind of spread it out, trying to not take too much air out of the dough, but try not to stretch it too much so we don't get any, like, you know, thin spots. And we'll wrap the pan, the entire pan. This is really important part of the process for the grandma, because you're essentially doing like a secondary proof. At that point, you know, depending on the time of year, you really have to keep an eye on that dough, because as it rises, if it goes too far, it'll overproof and it starts collapsing and you don't get the crust on the bottom that you want. You start getting bubbles. Every batch of dough is different. Every day is different. Like, to put a time on it is very hard. It's kind of more about doing it a lot and understanding what you want it to look like. All right, so let's get to it. So the grandma pie, our dough exactly how we want it. Sometimes we'll take a little bit of olive oil and just kind of little bit right above the edge. What starts to happen is there's a lot of fat inside of the sauce, and obviously the cheese has a lot of fat in it. You hit it with a little bit of olive oil, right? And once this pie settles down in the oven, all that fat will come to the bottom of the pan, and you'll essentially, especially with these nice pans, you essentially fry the bottom of that pizza. And that's one thing that I've noticed people really love in a grandma pizza. So if the bottom of it is crispy and you get that really nice crunch out of the bottom, but you have a nice soft, fluffy inside. To me, that's one of the best parts of a good grandma, and that's what we're looking for every time when we cook here. So adding a little bit of olive oil into the corners along the pan, eventually seeps down into the bottom, I think helps with that. So I think the biggest thing for me when we came in here was do as much as you can by hand as you can. There are pizzerias that, like, literally they buy their dough, they don't even make their dough in-house. But we tried to even take it to the next level, and obviously we're making our own dough from scratch, we're making our own sauce from scratch, all of that. But even like our cheese, the mozzarella cheese is all made from curd. You know, we're starting to experiment with some other fun stuff when it comes to flour. The mother dough that we use here was like originally a mother dough that was made right in here, like right on the shelf. Those are some of the things that I think, you know, separate us and we're also blessed to have this, 100-year-old coal oven, which is now converted into a wood oven, and that helps give like kind of that artisanal look to our pizza, which is very important to me. First thing I do is take some cheese. You don't want to use a ton of cheese. What I like is actually for some of the dough to poke through, without any sauce, without any cheese on it. And I think that helps get you like a nice light pizza, but once again, it also helps with the texture of the pizza. I kind of like to push it right up against the edge, get a little bit of that texture, yeah. But also the sauce is one of those things where a lot of things can happen. If you're making a big batch of sauce, sometimes the salt will all go to the bottom and won't be distributed well. I've had nightmare situations where I've looked at the bottom of my Lexan and there's just all salt on the bottom and it hasn't been mixed well. You gotta go in, remix it, or talk to your crew about how they mix it. If you're not tasting it, you have no way of knowing. You can ruin dozens and dozens of pizzas if your sauce isn't mixed well or if it's not seasoned properly. The way I kind of envisioned it was just like a lot of herbs and like a plump tomato sauce and some olive oil, a little bit of heat, no sugar or anything like that. We break it up with our hands. I kept feeling like something was missing. I was like, this pizza needs anchovies, it's just that simple. And that seemed to be it. That seemed to be that little missing piece that really gave it that extra like bit of, I don't know, umami, but also, those of us who really love anchovies and love those funky flavors, it has like an addictive quality, like you want more, Give it a little taste to make sure all those flavors are good. I love it. I look for like, am I tasting all those flavors that we just, that we spoke about that I want to get out of this? Do I taste the herbs? Do I taste the tomatoes? Do I taste, the anchovies? And it tastes delicious. Guys did a great job. And now just applying the sauce. And so the way that we do it is we have, what is 3 ounce, little 3 ounce ladle, 4 ounce ladle, and then we kind of go down in these like little dollops. I'm not really counting them, but what I am doing is that I'm making sure that each slice will have a good amount of everything that I want, Now I feel like the pizza's looking really good. We didn't squash it. And from here, I like going straight into the heat with this now, right into the wood fire oven. Gases explode, we get some of that color. Before it's totally cooked in there, maybe when it's like 80%, I'll take it out and transfer it to the electric oven because the electric and the gas both have that bottom heat, which this wood fire doesn't have the bottom heat. You want the bottom of this to get crispy, almost like fried up when the fat gets down there. So the reason we do it this way is as it cooks inside this oven, fat will naturally start to get down to the bottom of the pie and they'll start to fry up.
Now speaking of getting crispy, the pan material plays a big part in that. In the case of this grandma pie, Frank is using these Lloyd pans like what I used in my Detroit style pizza series. But if you're like me, you probably don't eat pizza for every single meal, so you need some high quality everyday cookware as well, which Frank and I also touched on a bit earlier.
I just saw the stuff that you did with Made In. I love this stuff. I don't know, we had a bunch of Made In stuff. I think that was gifted to my wife. Then we got it like the whole set for our wedding or whatever. And it's like top notch. Yeah. And really, really, really nice stuff.
And as I told him while we were chatting, I couldn't agree more. Now for those of you who aren't familiar with Made In, they design professional quality products for the home cook. Their cookware is used in multiple Michelin star restaurants. And just like Frank, I've been using Made In cookware exclusively for quite a while now. And it really is the best cookware I've used. I love their carbon steel, stainless steel, and enameled cast iron. And now that it's summer, I've also been getting a ton of use out of my carbon steel griddle. It's perfect for the stovetop since it spans 2 burners, giving me plenty of space to work with, but it's also great for the grill. It's heat resistant up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, so it can get super hot, giving you a really nice sear on meats and veggies. But it's also super responsive and super versatile, making it great for cooking over lower heat as well, which I showed in a recent video where I made some caramelized onions to replicate Best Pizza's white pie. One of my favorite uses for this griddle though is making smash burgers. And when paired with Made In's grill press, it's basically the perfect smash burger setup. So to check out Made In's carbon steel griddle or any of their other cookware, use the link in my description to save on your order. Thanks again to Made In for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your support. Now, I think Frank has a few more tips for us home pizza makers.
One is that for people that make their own dough at home, you have to give it time, So a lot of people want to make pizza and they want to make dough, and that same day they want to make the pizza. Maybe you got a new Gosney oven at your house, and the first mistake a lot of people make is that they'll do just that. They'll make the dough, they'll let it rise for like a half hour, 45 minutes, and then go make the pizza. to, you know, they end up coming out with a pizza that doesn't look like what they want. What I tell those people is make your dough a couple days in advance, at least a day in advance. Wrap it up, throw it in the back of your fridge. Just let it sit there for 24 hours. When it's time to make the pizza, it'll be a lot easier to just open up. You know, the dough will be nice and rested. You'll see characteristics in your dough that you wouldn't see. So time, I think, is very important, especially when it comes to the dough. Take a look at the oven, make sure everything is how I want it. Try to get a nice big flame. And you know, the big flame doesn't necessarily mean wood, it just means oxygen a lot of times and stacking it up well. Give it that pathway. And you can see I didn't put any new wood in, but that flame just got a lot bigger. That's one of my favorite, you know, shots, when you start to see the flames kind of roll over and kiss the pizza. One of my rules with pizza is like, don't fuss with it, you know? If you fuss with it too much, you end up screwing something up. We're about 80% done right now. Like the cheese is starting to like bubble up, but not burn. The sauce is spreading. We got that color, but it just needs to shrink up a little bit and get that nice bottom heat. And that's what we benefit from in here. ¿Cuál, arriba o abajo? Abajo. Okay, perfecto, gracias. All right, when it comes out, it gets popped out, it gets left on the tray, and then cut up. Yeah, so the grandma pizza in Long Island, there's a place called Umberto's, and watching him and how he made his grandma pizza to me was phenomenal. One thing that draws me to it is that it's a little bit more of a rustic style pizza. So I always gravitated to that pie because that acidity was kind of addicting to me. Sort of like the thinner square I always loved. I like the corner where it's a little bit more crunchy. Sometimes the mozzarella would get over to the edge and you really get all those different textures. And as I got to learn a little bit more about it and we open here, then we had an opportunity to develop our grandma pie. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but I did want to like kind of give it our twist with like the herbs, and I thought that was like a good combination. So one thing you see right away is that it's shrunk up, you know? You could see that inch or so. I would say we're like 90% there. Maybe we'll give it like another 10 minutes. And then I think we're good to go. All the little things that we do are for a reason. It could get complicated, especially for like a new cook that comes here. Kind of head may be spinning by the end of the day, but once they understand why we're doing it all, it kind of makes sense. Adrian's making our white pie right now. Just the way that he's spreading the onions is specific, you know? That's what I love about cooking, is like those little things make a difference. All right, I think we're there. We got everything that we want. Looks great. So we get underneath, nothing is stuck. I mean, it came right out. I mean, to the point where the pan, it's not dirty at all. We have to wipe it out, but the pan is essentially as clean as it is when we first came out. We have an amazing team here, and the guys that we work with are all very smart, and they take a lot of pride in what we do. All of these little things that we've done over the years, it's been a beautiful thing, you know? They're like my family. But this color is something that we look for, those bubbles that we look for, a little bit of that darkness, not saturated with sauce. You know, those are all characteristics of our best pizza grandma. This one's got your name on it. Ready to rock and roll.
All right, so Frank got me set up with my grandma slice. Now you guys know I've already had this several times before. I just had it the other day. You saw episode 1 of this grandma pie series, but to get a slice that I actually saw made from start to finish, super excited about it. Super good slice as always. It is really interesting too, after trying like I think 9 different grandma slices over these last few days that I've been in the city. This one just stands out even more. Obviously that one from Umberto's originally was great as well, but it's sort of a more slightly different take on the grandma slice. The flavor of the tomatoes just really pops. Perfect balance of sweetness and acidity. You get those little chunks of tomato on the top. Really not too much to complain about here. Now to watch that video where I tried 9 different grandma slices in New York City, you can click that video on screen here. So thanks a lot for watching, and now let's head back to the city to eat some more pizza.